Pledge of Allegiance.
When you're ready.
Yeah. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call. Oh, that's right. We have to call Mr. Mr. Capelloni, do you want to do the timer for?
Sure will. I got it.
Nobody wants to sit like church. Nobody wants to sit up front. Does somebody have a phone they can call?
Megan?
I'll call Mr. Dave.
Okay, and I'll call Megan.
Okay, you ready?
Okay.
Let's make sure we get them first. Hello, Mr. Dave. We're going to start the meeting. Mr. Dave,
Hi, Megan.
we're going to start the meeting. I'm going to put you on speakerphone, okay? Okay, here we go.
Okay. Roll call. Roll call.
Roll call. Miss Alpert?
Present.
Mr. Hanley?
Present.
Ms. Schumacher Cohen?
Present.
Mr. Dave?
Present.
And Ms. Cruz?
Present.
All present and accounted for.
Approval of the minutes of the regular meeting held, executive session.
All matters were discussed in executive session relating to litigation.
Okay. Approval of the minutes of the regular meeting held on December 2nd, 2024.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay. Roll call.
Miss Alpert?
Say it again, Megan.
Yes.
Mr. Hanley?
Yes.
Ms. Schumacher Cohen?
Yes.
Mr. Dave?
Yes.
Ms. Cruz?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Treasury Report for the period November 27th, 2024 to December 31st, 2024.
So this is a report as of December 31st, 2024. The balance in our checking accounts and money market accounts are $1,335,314.84. Investments made in certificates of deposit amount to $8,376,689.15. Petty cash and magistrate fund totaling $11,400 for a grand total of $9,723,403.99. Paid bills from November 27th to December 31st were forwarded to all members. If there are no questions, a motion should be made for approval of this report.
Second.
Miss Alpert?
Yes.
Mr. Hanley?
Yes.
Ms. Schumacher Cohen?
Yes.
Mr. Dave?
Yes.
And Ms. Cruz?
Yes.
Thank you.
Secretary's report, communications.
So, the Scranton Housing Authority Board of Directors received a letter from Mayor Paige Cognetti, which I'm going to read into the record. Dear board members, it has come to my attention that descriptions of your last meeting, which included discussion around rent increases and financial distress at Park Gardens, have been purposely misconstrued to incite rumors that are harmful to the residents of Park Gardens and troubling to neighbors in Greenridge. The rumors that have been circulated are false and predictably politically motivated. I write in advance of your upcoming monthly meeting on January 6th and your special meeting on January 13th to convey that it is important to make clear during these sessions that there is no risk to Park Gardens residents. No one is going to be forced to move. Please also make it clear that there is no plan, as alleged via social media and calls and emails to neighborhood association members, to convert the development to Section 8 housing. In fact, regulations that govern housing authorities limit Section 8 vouchers at housing authority properties to an extremely specific set of conditions and steps that must be taken. There is no path forward for SHA to use Section 8 at Park Gardens. Park Gardens has been home to many senior citizens over the decades. As there is a need for a financially viable plan for the development, perhaps that could include formalizing a senior citizen age threshold moving forward and pursuing funding available for the needs of that population. Scranton needs more housing units across income levels and life stages. Park Gardens should remain a place for seniors who want to age with dignity. The falsifying of what was discussed during your meeting is regrettable. I hope that as we enter this new year, our community can commit to facts, solutions, and caring better for each other. As Housing Authority board members, you exemplify the leadership and care for your neighbors we need more of. Thank you for stepping up for your community. Sincerely, Paige Gephardt-Cognetti, Mayor, City of Scranton.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Cohen. We will now accept public comment and welcome it. As per Housing Authority policy, public comment is limited to 5 minutes. Thank you. Per person, yes, per person. Thank you. First on the list, Mark McAndrew.
I'm here to listen.
Okay, so, okay, so. Okay, so as I say each name, if you're interested in speaking, you may. If not, I'm just going off of the sign-in sheet. Okay, so Mark McAndrew. I'm Tom Schuster? Same, okay. Welcome both, councilmen. I'm very, very honored to have you here. Miriam McDermott?
Just listening, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Kara Schweitzinger?
Just here to listen.
Okay. Jennifer Garrity?
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Well, I am here to listen. I just have a question. I have a nice loud voice. I'll keep it up.
No,
Do I have to? Is that?
yeah, it's really, it's, yeah.
So I just had a question. After you read Paige's statement, I just was concerned if there's a possibility of a sale, and if that sale of the property could lead to opening to Section 8 or some other things that maybe the neighborhood would like to be prepared for.
Okay. Okay. Okay, thank you. So we're going to go through public comment first and then chairman's report. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Next, Kevin Hayes. Hi, Kevin.
Good evening, Ms. Cruz, members of the authority. First, I'd like to thank you for your public service and the time and effort you expend on behalf of the community. As Ms. Cruz indicated, my name is Kevin Hayes. I live about a football's throw away from Park Gardens. I've lived there for the last 18 years. And I want to commend the Housing Authority in what I see as a successful operation of a public housing unit. Park Gardens, by all accounts, is a success story from the standpoint of Green Ridge neighbors. It's a clean, safe environment for many members of our Green Ridge community who no longer can maintain their homes, move to Park Gardens where they can still be active members of our community, where they go to our churches, they participate in our nonprofit activities. So as you can understand, when rumors were circulating that you would entertain changing the dynamic of that community, it made no sense to us. It is a truly successful place. It is safe. And I stand before you as somebody who knows public housing up close and personal. As a former seasonal employee of the Scranton Housing Authority, I spent my first 3 jobs at Valley View and Hilltop. And while there's many nice people, many nice families that live there, it's a very different dynamic than what we have at Park Gardens. And I think if you were to pull certain public safety records, that would bear out. So I would like to hear from the authority tonight that that in fact it is true that there is no one is contemplating changing the designation of Park Gardens, because we were under the impression tonight that there would not be any public comment. If there was public comment tonight, you would have dozens and dozens and dozens of more people here tonight than you have here. So we are very interested in hearing conclusively that you are not interested in changing the designation of Park Gardens. We want to continue to have that asset in our neighborhood. And again, I appreciate the opportunity for you to take my comments tonight. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Attorney Hayes. Jim Lockwood, Chris Kelly, I'm assuming you're here just to observe as well? Okay.
For the moment, yeah.
Okay, yes. Next, Colleen Gleason. Okay, okay. Michael Vescovi. Hope I pronounced that correctly. John Hart.
Here to listen.
Okay. Marcus McDonald.
Here to listen.
Okay. Rick Little.
Hi. Well, first I'd like to get the minutes. Do you have the minutes from December 2nd?
Yes, we approve them, yes, right?
And what I'm wondering about is how you know how much public housing is available. Is there any public thing saying that, like there's a 2-3 year waiting list for Section 8 or even regular public housing in like Adams Avenue and Hilltop and the other 4 places? Is there a list anywhere of when people come and go out of these buildings, other than the posts that I see downstairs that there's a 2 or 3 year waiting list?
So,
Does anybody?
well, no, we're going to answer your questions during our chairman and.
You want me to answer specifically?
Okay, you could if you want to specifically answer him.
A couple layers to that, Fred, but the apartment report will be later in the meeting. That tells you how many apartments we have and how many are available. Same with Section 8, the number of vouchers we have in total and how many have been issued. As far as a list of people moving in and out, no, that doesn't exist.
Yeah, because I've been following it for 15 years, and it's always been like, 1, 2, 3. There's been a few times where it's opened up for a few months, but I'm just trying to understand why, when I lived at Adams Avenue, I'm living on a floor of 22 people, and 20 of them are gone, and they get new people in. And I meet this guy, he says, "Oh, I got a job with Matt Cartwright, and I got a free apartment." And he goes, I go, "Where?" And he goes, "Adams Avenue." And it's boggling my mind how that happened.
It's boggling mine too. I don't know who you're referring to, but remember,
Yeah, I don't want to.
there was a fire in your building, that whole floor was emptied.
Yeah, but
That's
this
why-
is way after the fire. I mean, you had a million fires in my building, and that and you had COVID. But I'm just talking about, is there a list? Is there any record of anything of the people, not only who worked there? I tried to find out who worked there with right to knows, and that was denied me by the judge. But it's crazy to get a grip on housing in the community, and that's what I'm concerned about, is housing. And we're at this thing where people are worried about it being evicted from park gardens and things like that in different places, but there's really no housing. There's no housing, and even after I got evicted, it's covered by the manager of this housing. As you told me, it'll follow me all over the nation, to get it into public housing again. 7 years. I mean, I'll be dead in 7 years. I'm just trying to make way for somebody else. There has to be a record of the housing. The way they set up the housing with the Catholic Charities, taking care of the unhoused with these rooming houses that aren't inspected, just like all. Why isn't Scranton Public Housing inspected by the city of Scranton? I mean, there's no certificate of occupancy in the building. There's no place to go except the manager. And that's, as I've said before at this meeting, that's the problem, is the manager. And they kept changing. They changed 3 times. And the judges have the manager on speedphone. there has to be some sort of transparency, because this is the HUD farm office, and you're supposed to have records that show. You can't just put a sign downstairs that say, you know, there's a 2 to 3 year waiting list, because that same list was there, and they filled up the building. How did that happen? You know, it just on my old floor, 20 people are in there all of a sudden, and it's just a question. There has to be more transparency in it all. I guess that's all I have to say. Can I get the minutes?
Not yet, they're not approved. You're not listening.
Well, I did read the thing downstairs, and they were supposed to be approved first, and then the public comment's supposed to have about 5 things in.
Here.
You know. Thank you for posting the meeting this time downstairs.
You're most welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Little. Up next, Michael Cummings.
Just here to listen. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And lastly, Christopher Kelleher.
Good evening, Board.
Good evening.
Thank you. I appreciate you and your service to the community. Also, a lifelong resident, neighbor of Park Gardens, and I was extremely interested to find out, apparently, the agenda portion, is there anything on the agenda this evening that has to do with putting anything about this prior to Mayor Paige Cognetti's letter into the special meeting for the 13th?
Yes. No, from the beginning, the original, today is just our standard standard board meeting concerning other matters, and the meeting for the 13th will be specifically on Park Gardens. Specifically for Park Gardens.
In light of the fact that the mayor has just sent a communication that has,
No, it was already
was
planned.
scheduled before that.
Yes, this was scheduled in December.
okay, and would you be able to tell me what the topic of Park Gardens meeting for a special meeting entails?
Potential rent increase.
Potential rent increase exclusively?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you. I appreciate it. We'll see you on the 13th.
Thank you, Mr. Kelleher. Oh, yeah, Mrs. Jadik, would you like to speak? Yes.
I'm Roberta Jadik. I am a longtime resident of Greenridge, and I am on the board of the Greenridge Neighborhood Association. Couple of things. Park Gardens was dedicated in 1953 as middle-income housing. It wasn't dedicated as housing for low income. It wasn't dedicated as housing for senior citizens. It was middle income. And it continues to be middle income, not just senior citizen. We have families that live there. You go through in the summer, you see inflatable pools in front of some of the buildings. I can tell you the senior citizens aren't using the inflatable pools. They're not using the tricycles and the bicycles. It's family housing, middle income. We want to see it, excuse me, staying that way. Secondly, I'm a little concerned about the fact that you're slow in posting agendas and minutes of meetings. I believe the last minutes were October that were posted, and the current board is not on your website. So I think for everyone, that needs to be taken into consideration. Finally, as the person who posted about what I was hearing, it was not political. It was not meant to be a hatchet job. It was to inform the neighbors of Park Gardens of a potential problem that we need to be aware of. So there was nothing malicious at all. It was just that we needed to be aware, and before things were posted, several of us did check things out, and we were told that we were correct in what we had heard. Now we're told we're not correct in what we had heard. That's fine. We'll walk it back. But I don't like being portrayed as someone who's out to do a hatchet job on the administration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Jadik. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak for public comment? Okay. 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 So next on the agenda, the chairperson's report. So I want to thank everyone for taking time out of their busy schedule to attend this meeting. Mr. Hayes said it was communicated to him, or he assumed that public comment would not be allowed at this meeting. Per the Sunshine Law, any meeting of a legislative body must have public comment. We had public comment at our last meeting. We've had public comment since I've been on this board. So public comment is always available and welcomed. And I so appreciate everyone coming out tonight who did speak and who's here to observe. As the mayor stated in her letter, Park Gardens cannot be converted into Section 8 housing. That is not our plan. Next week's meeting, which will be held in the multipurpose room of St. Clair's Church on North Washington Avenue, will be for the express purpose of voting on a potential rent increase. At our last meeting in December, close to 70 residents of Park Gardens were in attendance. About 40 of them spoke, and they expressed to us various issues in terms of a lot of things that are going on with Park Gardens. And since that meeting as well, I've been hearing a lot from other residents. I've had conversations with many of you, and I so appreciate them. And so we are well aware that there's issues that need to be addressed, and we will evaluate in the future. In terms of what Mrs. Jadik said, I apologize that when you last viewed the website, it was not up to date. I believe that has since been remedied. Correct? Yes. You're right, Mr. Keller. As of today, it was. I will say, for this board, I was appointed chairwoman in November. I've been here since June.
I was appointed in October, so also new to the board.
And Mrs. Alpert, she was appointed in November. I will say that, for instance, we just implemented email addresses. Before that, the commissioners did not have email addresses. As you can tell, we have ECTV live streaming the meeting. Before meetings weren't live streamed; they were just minutes were just recorded and filed away. I and my colleagues, we are working hard to do what is in the best interest of the Housing Authority, of the city, and of the residents of all of our developments, the public housing, the Section 8, our housing choice voucher recipients, and of course the residents of Park Gardens. So I just want to state that we are moving forward with I guess you could say, processes that are more progressive and more up to date with how other boards and other organizations run meetings. I will say that. Would either of my colleagues like to make statements?
No, I'm fine. I think you said it. Thank you.
Okay. Mrs. Cohen?
I just wanted to say, because I also did receive some comments since the last meeting, that just in regard to the Section 8 program, we are proud to provide these vouchers to Section 8 recipients who use them with private landlords across the city. So I just wanted to make clear that in some of the commentary at times, I feel that We just want to be clear that these are members of our community who contribute to the community, and we're proud to serve them. Obviously, the next meeting on January 13th will be more specifically about Park Gardens. The history of it being a middle income, I'm sure we can discuss that, but there's actually no designation for that. That was historical. There's no funding for middle income housing complexes. It's not actually a designation any further, and there's no state or federal funds available for what that would have been. It was something that was done in the past in the 1950s, and it was phased out. So what we're faced with now is looking at this complex that has financial issues, and that we need to look at in a holistic way to make it, as Chairwoman Cruz has said, something that is solvent and also continues to serve the needs of the Scranton area.
All right, Executive Director Report.
Thank you, Ms. Cruz. Just real briefly, in response to Mr. Kelleher, because of the amount of people at the last meeting, there was senior citizens, some handicap, and I'm sure we were over capacity in here. It was very uncomfortable. We suggested to have a meeting out in Green Ridge closer to where they live, so that's why we set up a special meeting just for the 13th for the sole issue of the Park Gardens rent increase. And
Well done, it's handicap accessible.
Yeah.
You are not.
yeah, well, we are, but you have to go around the back, and
All right.
it's a lot easier to do it that way than have it tonight with, as you can see, with just about 20, it's uncomfortable. So that's why we're having two separate meetings. This is our regular monthly meeting where we conduct our regular business, and next week will strictly be a rent increase. That's how this all started. Park Gardens needs to address some financial issues, and the only avenue we have to create revenue is to increase the rent. So that'll be addressed next week, okay? And everybody's welcome.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
If you want to stick around, we're going to go through the utility reports and so forth, but I'll leave that up to you.
If you don't mind,
That's up to you, and
you've got a lot of work.
It's real
to do as a
exciting.
board. Thank you very much. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
you can stay or not, it's up to you, but that's where we're headed right now. Madam Chair, the utility report for December.
Okay, yes. We have to go through the solicitor report and apartments and solicitor's report.
Nothing other than what's discussed about the
That's part of the,
Okay, sorry.
executive session.
Okay, apartments.
I have to do the utility executive
Oh,
report.
okay.
For the month of December, the total utility costs were $303,920.91, as opposed to November, where they were $274 and $274,072.07. And the gas and electric went up about $10,000 to $15,000 due to the nature of the weather and the heating cost increasing. So that's why there's a jump in that number. As far as the delinquent accounts for December, again, 346 delinquent accounts for a total of $26,813.63. November's was 337 delinquent accounts for a total of $244,218.83. And October was 294 delinquent accounts, $226,707.97. The construction report, Madam Chair, as of January 2nd, the following will serve as an update on the status of the construction projects at the SHA as of the above date. Renovations at buildings 13 and 14. All work at construction projects has been complete, waiting on final punch list to be completed. Site work for building 13 and 14, excuse me. As of Thursday, December 19, 2024, the SHA Architect and KR Construction Group agreed to temporarily suspend the remaining site work due to the winter conditions. This pause ensures that all remaining work can be completed to the highest standard once favorable conditions return in the spring. For Building 12 renovations, we have bids for general construction, K&R Construction, Multiscape, H&P, Electrical Construction, Lieber Construction, KR Construction, and HVAC Construction for Harrington and KR Construction. Also, Plumbing Construction, Cosgrove's North End Plumbing, and KR Construction, And we're going to review that tonight, so I won't get into the numbers just yet, but we're going to address that shortly. Also, security cameras they've received permits and have started work on installing cameras in the 3 West Side, Jackson Heights, Jackson Terrace, and Riverside. And work has begun. It's probably almost complete, but with the weather, we'll see. And that's all on the executive report, Madam Chair.
All right, sorry, I was confused. Now the solicitor's report.
As stated, other than the litigation that we have, which are presently 5 or 6 cases that are open, nothing to report.
All right, thank you. Apartments.
Yes, Madam Chair. Apartment report for the period of December 1, 2024 to December 31, 2024. Under our public housing program, we have an ACC of 1,214 units with 1,169 units under effective lease. There are 45 vacant apartments, in which 27 vacant units are under modernization, vacant, approved by HUD. Under the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program, we have an ACC of 1,050 units with 746 units under effective lease. Total apartments under effective lease by the Scranton Housing Authority as of December 2024 are 1,915 out of an ACC of 2,264. And that concludes the apartment report.
Okay. Unfinished business.
None that I'm aware, Madam.
Okay. New business. Under resolution number 25-5, approval to amend the Scranton Housing Authority's admission and occupancy policy, Section 4, residential lease agreement, Part B, notice of lease termination.
Yes, Madam Chair. Amending the Scranton Housing Authority's admission and occupancy policy, Section 4, residential lease agreement, Part B, notice of lease termination, Resolution 25-5. Whereas the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, requires that every public housing authority amend the residential lease and the admissions and occupancy policy to assure each resident is provided a 30-day notice in the case of failure to pay rent, pursuant to 24 CFR 880.607, Section C7. Also under 884.216, Section C, and under Section 966.4E for non-payment of rent from 14 days to 30 days. And whereas Scranton Housing Authority has reviewed its existing policy and has deemed it necessary to amend the residential lease in order to be consistent with 24 CFR 880.607 C7, 884.216C, and 966.4E. Whereas HUD has changed the law to provide a 30-day notice to all residents in the case of failure to pay rent. Now, therefore, be it resolved, this 6th day of January 2025, the Scranton Housing Authority Board of Commissioners hereby amend the residential lease and the admissions and occupancy policy to amend the notice to residents for non-payment of rent from 14 days to 30 days. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Ms. Alpert?
She said I second it, Megan.
Yes?
She said yes.
Mr. Hanley?
Yes.
Ms. Schumacher Cohen?
Yes.
Mr. Dave?
Yes.
Ms. Cruz?
Yes.
Thank you. The second matter is the awarding of the contracts for the bid openings on the construction. Do we want to discuss what happened with regards to the bids, or just read the numbers?
Well, I think the appropriate thing is, as addressed at the executive session, there's an issue as to who the lowest responsible bidder is based on the numbers and based on the lack of submission of appropriate permits and approvals by the city for licensing on the subcontractors. So as a solicitor for the Scranton Housing Authority, I would recommend that those bids as presented be rejected at this time, because we cannot determine a lowest responsible bidder.
And there are letters from KBA Engineering architect Paul Smoller regarding each of the contracts and his letter of recommendation,
Which are consistent with mine.
which are consistent with Attorney Doherty's. And with that said, the The general construction bid for the Valley View Building 12 project would be H&P Construction, is that correct? At $1,829,485. Can I have a
H&P.
motion to award it to?
So moved.
I'll second.
Thank you. Mrs. Alpert?
Yes.
Mr. Hanley?
Yes.
Ms. Schumacher Cohen?
Yes.
Mr. Dave?
Yes.
Ms. Cruz?
Yes.
On the electrical construction, the lowest responsible bidder would be Lieber Electric at $197,950.00. Can I have a motion to award the electrical construction contract at Valley View Building 12 to Lieber Electric?
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Alpert?
Yes.
Mr. Hanley?
Yes.
Ms. Schumacher Cohen?
Yes.
Mr. Dave?
Yes.
Ms. Cruz?
Yes.
The HVAC construction. Robert Harrington Incorporated would bid as the lowest responsible bidder at $238,000. Can I have a motion to award the contract,
What contract is this? I'm sorry.
the HVAC?
Oh, HVAC, sorry.
A motion for the HVAC construction at Valley View Building 12 be awarded to Robert Harrington Incorporated.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Alpert?
Yes.
Mr. Hanley?
Yes.
Ms. Schumacher Cohen?
Yes.
Mr. Dave?
Yes.
Ms. Cruz?
Yes.
And finally, the plumbing construction contract for Valley View Building 12 construction, Cosgrove's North End Plumbing with a bid of $424,900. Can I have a motion to award the contract for the Building 12 Valley View Plumbing construction to Cosgrove's North End Plumbing?
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Alpert?
Yes.
Mr. Hanley?
Yes.
Ms. Schumacher Cohen?
Yes.
Mr. Dave?
Yes.
Ms. Cruz?
Yes.
Thank you.
Number 10, personnel. Acceptance of the retirement of Michael Paul Mesa. B, acceptance of the retirement of Paul Walsh. C, acceptance of the retirement of Thomas Zielinski. And D, motion to award the position of security guard to Michael J. McDermott.
Can I have a motion?
These together?
It's all on the same sheet, so yes, that's fine.
So moved.
Second? Miss Alpert? Mrs. Alpert?
She said yes.
Mr. Hanley?
Yes.
Ms. Schumacher Cohen?
Yes.
Mr. Dave?
Yes.
Ms. Cruz?
Yes.
With that, that concludes the personnel report.
And just for clarification, that motion to award the position to security guard, that's required by a union contract. That's not a selection.
Thank you, Mr.
Is it a union contract? So how'd you move it on?
Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Okay.
So moved.
I'll second.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you. Mr. Dave, the meeting's over.
All right, Megan, the meeting.
Thank you. See you next week. See you next week.